dangerous. Stronger together. Usually. Who's next?
There is not enough fire in all the stars for your pride. Violence, how not? I do not
Helping hands. Thanks for the dance, ladies. I need.
What up guys, it's your boy Scared Soldier back with another Borderlands 3 video, and in today's video we decided to dust off Amara and bring her back to life with a brand new build at level 65 that could take on any content in Mayhem level 10 or 11, it doesn't matter, so I hope you guys are excited. We're going to be getting started into the gear, however, and we're going to be starting off with the weapons that we suggest to you guys. So just to get it out the way, all the weapons that I suggest to you are not mandatory. If you do not have any of the DLCs, just make sure you use a weapon that is very powerful in the game. One of those being the Hellwalker is one of my greatest suggestions that don't require you guys to be using a DLC. So for the other weapons, we have the Flipper, probably one of the best for the build for mobs, honestly, because of all the pellets that come out of it. Although it's not listed on the card, it can do ×9 per shot, so you get 9 pellets per shot with this weapon, which really is great for ricochets. And then the plasma coil is the plasma coil, just super strong weapon. And of course the light show, just make sure consecutive hits is the anointment you guys are using for all the weapons. Now moving on, for the shield, all you need is an old god. You are not limited to one. Again, if you do not have a DLC, you can use any shield in the game really, but that old god gives you that extra power with that little extra elemental damage, and I like to have a little extra damage, if you know what I mean. And of course you want action skill end. Now for the grenade, you can have a recurring hex. This is great because it does elemental damage, and elemental damage with Amara is converted to Hellsteel. So if you guys have ever played Mo's before and you used a cloning maddening tracker with Vampire, essentially when you throw grenades with Amara, it does very similarly give you Hellsteel back like it does with Mo. So very, very powerful stuff. Now, moving on, we are using the Elemental Projector Victory Rush, and of course, for the rolls, if you were to look for one particularly, you want movement speed, because with the Spiritual Driver, which is the class mod we are going to be using, the faster you move, the more damage you do, which is also going to lead me to my next point, is you want as many points into mindfulness as possible. So I think the max you can get is 3. If you can get 3 points out of mindfulness, that is really good because you'll be moving even faster, which means even more damage. For your class mod rolls, all you really need is weapon specific ones if you can find them. Things like assault rifle damage, pistol damage, shotgun damage, heavy weapon damage, splash damage. All of those things are going to be great for this build for you to maximize your damage with Amara. If you can also slip in there some action skill cooldown rate, that is going to be another very valuable skill. Now, we're going to be moving on to skill tree real quick, and we're going to be breaking it down for you, of course. So the first thing we wanted to get in this red tree was Sustainment. This is going to be the lifesteal that I talked about with the reoccurring hex, and also just in general with your weapons. This is the way to keep us alive. And why only 1 point? Because we are on Mayhem 10 and 11, and our weapons at this point are doing hundreds and thousands of damage, and we're getting a percentage off of that number, which is quite a lot, and most people's health caps off around 25,000. So if you're getting a lot of damage, then 4% is going to be more than enough to fill you back up to full, plus your grenades and all that other good stuff. Now, the other important perks of this are things like Anima, of course Tempest. These are going to be elemental damage and status effect damage, which is very nice. Things like Deep Well is going to give you more DPS with more mag size. Indiscriminate is going to be another key perk because ricochet chance is going to be increased, and this is very, very nice because it's going to allow you to take on mobs very effectively. Believe me, those ricochets are extremely powerful, especially with our augment ties that bind guys. Very, very powerful stuff. And of course, the other augments we're going to talk about a little later, but when you want to use Soulfire, just make sure the enemies have health bars to take advantage of it, because you want to match your element with the types of opponents you're going against. So why do we have 1 point in infusion as well? For those newcomers, we have 1 point into infusion to make sure that our weapons are doing elemental damage. And of course, what's going to happen is Sustainment is going to be always active. That is why 1 point into fusion is a very good idea to have. All right, and all you need is really 1 point as well, most of the cases. And that is the red tree for you guys, why we put it that way. But Ties That Bind is the best augment we want. Moving on to the green tree, this is actually a really awesome tree as well. We got personal space giving us a ton, guys, a ton of weapon damage when we get up and close to enemies, which is what you want to do. Make sure you keep that in mind when you're playing with this build. Don't be afraid to get up in enemies' faces, because you want to do that, especially with the build, because you're going to be maximizing every shot that comes out of your gun, and you're going to notice a huge difference the closer you get to enemies. Trust me on this, guys. Now, some of the other key skills are going to be Arms Deal, giving you more splash damage, up to 20%, which is very, very nice. And also Mindfulness, like I talked about a little earlier, giving you more movement speed, shield regen, and also you get a ton of stacks of this. So keep in mind, you're going to be basically moving very fast, and the faster you move, the more weapon damage you will do. Lastly, for the next skill tree, we have the purple tree. Now, if you do not have the DLCs, it's not a big deal. You can just put those 5 points a little more into the red tree if you want to get down to the capstone. If you have those 5 points to spare, or you can kind of mix and match at this point, it's not that important. But if you do have the purple tree, you can put 5 points into Heavy Rain. This is going to increase your splash damage by 35%, which is a heck of a lot. And also your projectile speed by 70%, which is very, very nice, especially for slow projectile weapons. This thing is going to transform those weapons real quick. All right, so make sure you get Heavy Rain if you can. If not, like I said, it's not a big deal. You can pick up things in the red tree. You can put more points into you can put some Conflux if you really want to, but if you want to get to the capstone, you can even put more points into the green tree if you guys really feel like it. That's what I would recommend. Just put the rest of the points in the green tree, but that is up to you guys. But for the last tree, we do have the blue tree. Now, what we wanted to do was get all the way down to Avatar, giving us more bonus rush stacks, and also Remnant. These are 2 key skills that you want to get. Remnant, don't worry what the card says. 2,000 damage is not indicative of what this actually can do. It can do more like 50 million types of damage like that with this perk. That's how good it is. And that is pretty much what we did with the blue tree. Picked up some reload speed, picked up some do harm to increase our action skill damage, and also we have a ton of other damage type of perks with Wrath and also Laid Bare to make us very, very strong. And then our augment in the blue tree is Stillness of Mind, because that is going to create a little cage around the enemies and a bunch of enemies, so it's a good crowd control type of augment with our Ties That Bind. So that is the whole skill tree, guys, and we're going to be jumping into some gameplay real quick of this epic build, so let's get right into it. Alright guys, we're jumping straight into some gameplay over on Athenas, just to kind of slow things down before we get into the Maliwan takedown and also the Guardian takedown in the next bit of footage. But I just want to showcase the build in a different environment, just so you guys get an idea of what's going on. And pretty much we are taking advantage of Ties That Bind with this build in combination of the Spiritual Driver, personal space, all of that good stuff. And just look at this pretty image right here of all those enemies grasp, and look how fast that time to kill is to destroy these enemies. Watch this part right here. Insane, man. The damage is one of my favorite parts of the build, of course, but we're gonna be talking a little more in detail as we go on. So starting off, we are going to be with the flipper over on the Guardian takedown, and you're going to be seeing how good the Ties That Bind is with this setup and how fast we can go through mobs. So when I played with all the other characters in the game, they are all individually very unique in their own way, but when I played with this build with Amara, I realized that her mob clearing potential is probably the fastest in the game. Just with that Ties That Bind, all you need to do is literally grasp one enemy. Whatever enemies are nearby will all get grasped as well. That is why I like to wait for enemies to kind of group together before I phase grasp, and you just have to shoot at one enemy with a couple of shots and they're all dead. It's quite nuts how insane this build works and how good Amara is. It's just really good, and why you should try this build out. Now, we are using the flipper, and I want to shout out Dan. He was on my live stream a couple of days ago, and he suggested that I try out the flipper out with the build, because the flipper has a potential to go up to 9 projectiles per shot. And what's great about that is just the simple fact that you get a bunch of ricochets with Discriminate. So anytime you're dealing with a group of mobs, you're getting a bunch of ricochets with that specific weapon, and it's very, very easy to use and does a high amount of damage. Same thing with the plasma coil, which is what you're seeing out right here. We just put in a couple shots at the enemies and they're all dead. Look how fast we cleared out this part, guys. It's quite impressive, to be honest, and why I say Amara is probably one of the best mobbing characters in the game, especially with ties that bind. Now, moving on, we have a really epic part for you right here at the Guardian Takedown, because we have a bunch of enemies. This is like the bridge, very similar to how the Maliwan Takedown bridge is in a way, and just look how fast we dominated those enemies, guys. It's not even fair. Now, we also probably have questions about the bossing capability of this build, which is why I'm going to be showing you a couple of boss fights as well, and this build is quite dominant as well for bosses. The three main reasons I would say why it's so dominant is, one, even if there's no enemies around, you can phase grasp the enemies and shoot the little minions around, and if you shoot the minion, the damage will be projected to the boss, and it will be even greater than if you shot at the boss individually, because he will basically be phase grasped in a different way with ties that bind, giving you a ton of damage, which is exactly what you saw in that clip. We don't even need to shoot at the boss. Look, we are shooting at the enemy, and look at the damage we're getting out of that. That is just the effects of Amara with the scaling of her ties that bind and all of that good stuff. So there's obviously one thing I want to address. I just want to make sure you guys know that this build is not dependent on fake phase grasping or any of that stuff, because I believe Gearbox did nerf that. But the important thing is that we actually do use the grasping aspect of her build, because the phase grasping part of it is what gives us the most damage against those mobs and giving us that potential of clearing. Look at those remnant orbs, guys, by the way, just destroying the boss. That was really, really cool clip there. But there's so much going on with this build, that, guys, with the remnant orbs, indiscriminate ricocheting shots, you have a ton of stacks, and also, like I was mentioning before, what makes the bossing capabilities of this build great is the spiritual driver, because the faster you move, the more damage you do, which obviously can be scaled even further with Speed Demon if you do go on Mayhem 10. And also the personal space, like I was mentioning before, if you get nice and close to the enemies, you will be doing a far greater amount of damage than you would if you were not super close to them. So make sure you get up in the enemy's face, because that is going to give you your best bet. And from a level of crowd control as well, although with 1 point in sustainment, that's all you really need to keep yourself alive. When you're phase grasping the enemies, or at least phase locking them, whenever enemies come together and get close, they also get grasped in the air, which is what you're going to see here. And it's going to give you a great sense of crowd control, making your survivability even easier. And right there was a great example of how good Sustainment was. We were taking a lot of damage, and as long as we were shooting at that Kraken, we were keeping ourselves alive. And then again, another great example right there was with Indiscriminate. We got a couple of ricochets to kill the first Valkyrie, and then we absolutely dominated the next couple of Valkyries. So that's pretty much it, guys. From a level of mobbing, this build is the best for mobbing. The bossing is amazing. The potential of the build in terms of clearing, or at least speed running takedowns, is probably the fastest I've seen. I might have to do a test in the future with the characters, but this is some of the fastest mobbing I've done. And also make sure you guys use the flipper, and not to forget that you can use your reoccurring hexes to actually get health steal as well, because of course elemental damage is converted to health steal for Amara, so you can throw grenades if you also need health, very similarly to how Moze uses her cloning matting tracker with Vampire. You can do the same thing with with Amara as well. So right over here we got an epic kill on Wotan to finish off the video. I just want to say thank you guys so much for supporting that flak build that I posted. It's really doing well. I appreciate you guys. That is why I'm showing you love with an Amara build, and also we will be posting possibly another Amara build in the future. So make sure you are subscribed and like the video so you do not miss another one. I'll catch the next one. It's your boy Scared Soldier signing out. Peace.